Hey everybody, welcome to Pale in Comparison, a proud member of the Doof Network. In this podcast, my sister uses her knowledge of the Otherverse to take a look at Pact, Wildbow's biggest fake out, and I try to not give away any spoilers. I'm Jenny, and Malia convinced me to read Worm.
I'm Malia, and Jenny convinced me to read everything else. This episode, we are covering Null, chapters 9.3 and 9.4. Before we get into that, however, I'd like to issue a spoiler warning. This podcast is filled with pale spoilers. If you don't know whether Macaulay goes through with her ritual and murders someone, and don't want us to tell you, stop now, read Pale, and come back to this podcast. As for Pact, there will be full spoilers to the chapters we are covering.
Okay, I didn't actually expect our tagline to still be like Wildbow's biggest fake out, so it kind of took me back
applicable.
for a second. It sure is, Malia. Oh, man. All right. We're going to go over the summary, and then I get to ask you a great question. So Blake tried to convince Miss Lewis to help him, to no avail. He sees another vision with Rose at the council meeting, who refuses to follow the rules for the lordship contest that they're going to be holding. He is really angry, and he ends up going to the witch's house, who shows him what to do next. Then Blake confronts, his version of Carl, and goes into a twisted remake of his traumatic past. Towards the end, Blake has an epiphany and realizes that he was the Vestige all along. What do you think of these chapters, Malia?
Okay. Blake's not real. Woo, woo, he is alive. I'm gonna have to figure out a word that's not real, because real isn't accurate, because Blake is real, but this is a lot. This whole arc is really good so far and really a lot.
Yeah.
We get Blake's backstory. We learned that Blake's backstory was fabricated. We get a lot. We get Rose being a huge bitch. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna just look up some definitions, and first thing I found out, looking at Google, I guess it's pronounced Vestige. So sorry, everyone who's been pulling their hair out that I've been pronouncing this wrong for the whole podcast. But I'm going to look up just some Google definitions. Says from Oxford Languages. So first, a trace of something that is disappearing or no longer exists. That's one. That's a noun. Also, could be the smallest amount, or used to emphasize the absence of something. Like, he waited patiently, but without a vestige of sympathy. Also says, in biology, it is a part or organ of an organism that has become reduced or functionless in the course of evolution.
Like an appendix.
Woo! So Blake is the
Blake's
appendix. He's an appendix. That's rough. I mean,
he was useful.
It gets really painful when it needs to come out. And, I feel like that applies. Its origin is Latin from vestigium, which I guess meant footprint.
Like tails. Vestigial tails? Is that the word for it?
I'm guessing that also applies on here. It's a vestigium footprint. I don't know. I guess it used to be used a lot in the 1800s and has declined quite drastically into the modern day. So
feels ironic.
Thankfully, this story has brought it back, which is kind of ironic, but that's funny.
Yeah.
So Blake is the appendix. So what does that make Rose?
The
rest.
The rest. the stuff in the appendix that breaks out and kills you.
She's the stuff in the appendix that breaks out and kills you?
Yep.
She's not. I don't know how that applies, because, how is a vestige made, Malia?
You cut off a part, and then you're like, here it is.
So, what part was he cut off from?
I don't know. I'm mad at her.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. We'll have to face this. We'll give you a break right now. Okay. We'll be facing this more towards the end. Okay.
I'm so mad. Okay.
I'm going to try to make sure I pronounce that word correctly, because I've been pronouncing it wrong for a really long fucking time. So, sorry again. So, Blake tried to get Miss Lewis to help him, but aside from having no power, Miss Lewis also says it would undermine their current client, Rose. She says no.
I mean, you have to have loyalty to your client, which is cool, but also, like, you made Blake believe this is against the rules of professional responsibility. You made Blake believe that he was your client. He had, like, definite reason to believe that he was your client, and so you owe him some stuff, probably, like confidentiality and shit. I mean, you can fire your client, but, like,
what if they honestly thought that he was their client, or like he was their client at the time?
See, it's like worse or something. You can't do your clients like this, but whatever.
Even
like, they
if,
shouldn't be able to represent Rose because of their conflict of interest.
Okay.
But it's fine. There probably aren't
Do
that
you
many
think
demon
they
lawyers
care
around.
as demon? Yeah, I was like, they are demon lawyers, so I don't know if they care that much
Sure.
about conflict of interest, but
yeah. I was happy it was Ms. Lewis. I sort of was thinking maybe it was going to be all three of them or one of the other ones, but it makes sense that she's the one who would come because the others don't give a shit. And yeah, I mean, I still, sort of like her, but also if she's going to come down there, she should not just say no and walk away. She should, be like she does kind of explain and kind of, talk with him about it. But the whole, like, it's too late and just literally walking away, like, what the fuck? Yeah. She sort of starts laying on some hints about Blake's true nature, and I did not get it, so that was fun. And yeah, I'm not really sure when to talk about. I mean, like, probably the end is the best time, but I don't understand the whole what people remembering him has to do with the fact that he's a vestige. Like, I don't know why it's significant that Blake can remember himself. Yeah. Like, Mags, who isn't a vestige, right? Like, could remember who she is and who she was even when other people couldn't place her or whatever. Like, if you're the one experiencing it, makes sense that you would know who you are or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ms. Lewis is like, you've served your purpose, which makes
harsh.
So much sense given what she knows about Blake. And he's like, oh yeah, I guess it's weird because if they needed me to bring Rose into the world, they could have just killed me after. And so they must have not killed me to buy Rose time. And I was like, well, yeah, because, you're supposed to help her figure out what to do, and there's supposed to be kind of a buffer and like whatever, and then she's supposed to step in and take your place. And it's like, that's all true. We just didn't understand which one was the real one and which one wasn't. And I like I said, I need a better word than real. So the idea that the quote unquote real world is the material plane or whatever, I think I might try to start saying material when I'm instead of real. Which is fun because then I get to
sing that song.
Yeah, Rose. And I am a material girl. Duh, duh, duh. Is that Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend? Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I don't remember if that's like from
Moulin
another
Rouge
thing.
version. Yeah.
It's also I think Material Girl by Madonna. I think that's like the original one. But then it also was in
referencing that.
Let's say, yeah, I think that was the original one, and then it was like they added that to the Moulin Rouge because I don't think that was originally part of the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend.
Right, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it just does work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just it made sense thinking that Rose was designed as a custom heir. But yeah, then we think more about it later, and we figured out.
Yeah.
I still don't understand where where Laird fits into this. It's like Laird knew, don't know why. Like, I get that he had trained under Grandma Rose and she had probably talked to him about it or something. But I don't get why. I guess. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
It's also hard because I still don't know, no one's mentioned Laird since he died. Presumably they remember him and they remember that he died, but maybe they can't remember how, they probably can't remember how. I'm not certain what people remember and what they don't. And so that makes it hard in my mind to figure some stuff out. In terms of, everything. Yeah. I think it's interesting that Ms. Lewis acknowledges that Blake can't give up. I think this is probably one of the qualities that was given to Blake, similar to his his trauma that made him not want to experience physical touch. I think Blake's extreme persistence, I guess, stubbornness, certainly seems like a Thorburn quality, but also the way Ms. Lewis acknowledges it seems to be like, oh yeah, of course you can't give up. Like, literally. Because that's how we made you. Yeah. Also, then they start talking about the whole, like, a domain or forgotten god might be near here, lol. And, like, I can get the whole forgotten god thing, right? Like, it's a very, like, we've already, in Pale, we see a little bit about deities, and this is very Terry Pratchett concept of, like, the more people who pray to you and believe in you, the more power you have, or whatever. And so I can get that, like, if everyone stops worshipping you, you would fall through into this place. And you'd still probably be fairly fucking powerful because you whatever. But like a domain, like I guess I don't really understand what happens to domains after the practitioner dies. I mean, we know a little bit that they can last kind of as like bulwarks, and we know that they're like permanent changes. They never, you can never really give them back and stuff, even if you die. And the idea of a domain like falling into a pit, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Okay. I mean, in Pale, do you remember hearing anything about that, about the ruins, or like?
God, no. I need to start rereading Pale. That's one of the things I've learned.
Yeah, because I'm sure you have time for that.
Interesting point, Jenny.
Which, I mean, you know, they just might not have run into them yet. It's a big place.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't really know what this place is, in my opinion. I'm very willing to believe it's not the ruins. Blake refers to it as drains with a capital D, I think, but no one has. I don't think anyone was like, "You are in the drains, bitch." Like, yeah,
yeah, and we haven't heard of what the drains means,
right?
All right. So after that unfortunate interaction, Blake sees another vision.
Oh my god.
Of the Jacob's Bell Council meeting, where they're discussing rules for the upcoming Lordship contest, and Rose straight up is like, "No, I'm not doing any of this shit, but I'm gonna participate, but I'm not following any rules." And she basically like drops the mic and walks out. So that's great.
What did Rose know and when did she know it? Continues to be the mantra. I'm pulling up the chapter bit because I'm still having a problem remembering that Maggie is Mags.
Sure.
I always want to say Maggie. Okay, and I just wanted to check and see if Blake still called her Maggie, but that wouldn't make sense, and it is Mags. Okay. This part was really curious to me because I thought we were gonna start switching perspectives between Blake and other people within the story. And I'm glad that we don't technically do that here, because I like Wildbow's structure of the first person perspective protagonist and then flipping over into third person in specific chapters. I don't know, I like that. And so figuring out at the end that this is just Blake is seeing all of this happen was kind of a relief, because I was like, are we in Mags's perspective? Like, are we in Sandra's perspective? I couldn't, like, are we in Rose's perspective? Like, I couldn't quite figure it out. He never gets quite close enough to any of them in particular, which makes sense because it's Blake. Yeah, Blake talks about how this isn't like an official proper meeting necessarily, because she's not, like, Sandra isn't standing behind the altar. And like my Catholic sensibilities like fucking lost it. I was like, they would speak from behind the altar. Like, what the fuck? I just got so mad. Like, the idea of people, like, obviously, like, this presumably can't be a Catholic church. Because my god. Like, the idea of like even a priest doing this outside of mass, you know, like no,
Yeah.
like no, like no, like no. I don't know, something about that was like this huge visceral reaction of like, how dare
Like, how dare you bastards? Yeah.
Right. Like, churches use their churches, parishes use their churches or whatever for assemblies and stuff. Often it's convenient. There's like sound system and places to sit and whatever, and you can fit a lot of people in there. But you
Mm-hmm.
would never stand
Go
behind
behind
the
the
altar.
fucking
And,
altar.
yeah.
Like, you just don't do that.
You don't do it. You don't even stand at like the ambo or whatever. Like
No.
you get a mic and you stand in front of the whole stage.
You probably
thing.
wouldn't even. I mean, I feel like people would stand. I don't even know if I'd stand on the stage. Probably stand in front of it.
Right.
But yeah.
What is this, the sanctuary? That might be the word. Yeah.
Mm.
So that was funny. It's also interesting here that again, what the fuck is up? Like Laird's dead, right? But and like fuck Duncan, and you don't even live here. But like it's just Sandra standing up there, and like not another Bahame, which is interesting. But also fuck Duncan. Why don't we know? Like there's some aunt whose house Buttmunch destroys or whatever. Not Buttmunch. I always, oh god, Dick Swizzle. Like surely there are other fucking Bahames other than like this jackass. Like I want Duncan to go away. I don't know why. I just like don't like him at all. But I'm just like, please leave.
I really like the word swizzle
Mm-hmm.
for some reason. Just
What's the etymology of swizzle?
probably something. I don't know. What's the meaning of swizzle? To drink, especially to excess, or to guzzle. I did not know that.
Yep. Cool. Yep.
That's really funny. Alternate in bartending, swizzles are sour style drinks with a similar composition to a punch that distinctively must be turned with a swizzle stick.
Oh, I think I've seen those.
So do you think Dick Swizzle's thing is like going and swizzling drinks with his dick?
Oh. Yes.
Has to be, right?
Right. Well, because I was just thinking like sucking people's dicks or whatever. Like, okay, but no, I think you're definitely on the right track with what. Yeah. Wow.
I think that's
really so much more fun. I'm so glad we figured this out.
What kind of properties do you think it gives to the drinks? I mean, besides being just disgusting.
Really bad.
You think it just makes everyone sick?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably something to do with like urine and probably something to do with like sex and like, you know, different awful.
I feel like all goblins just must have like nasty UTIs at all time.
Oh god.
Because I'm like, I know. Okay, so like urine is sterile as long as it's still in your bladder. Because you know like, that one like dodgeball, or at least my husband says it all the time because he's fucking weird. He's like what? Like I like urine, or I drink urine because it's sterile and I like the taste or something. Do you remember that?
No, but it's been a very long time since
I've seen you've seen that. Once it comes out of your urethra, it ain't sterile anymore, people. Just so you know. I mean, I don't know how many of you are drinking your own pee. Hopefully none. But
discussion question.
There you go. We're done. Perfect. But it's part of the purpose of urine coming out of your urethra is to help wash out all the little germs that are constantly trying to make their way up and give you a UTI or a bladder infection. And so hopefully if everything's working right, you're flushing all that stuff out as well. But I bet just goblins just must have just nasty ass, like cloudy, disgusting looking urine at all times. So
I hate that so much. Yeah, you're probably right.
At least Dick Swizzle, because I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Like he has to. Like that's his name, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of the nicer goblins don't, but I don't know. It just seems like it makes sense to me. But
yeah. Anyway.
All right. We'll save that discussion question for the end. See how many answers we get on it this time. It's probably a stark contrast to this last one.
This week, yeah.
Yes.
So all the main people are here. And I'll talk about them a little bit as we talk about their but Rose, Alexis, Ty, and Tiff show up, and they all have summoned others with them. which I
Are
kind of hate.
scary.
And they're kind of scary, yeah. So I feel like I should make some speculations about what these are, and I don't know, but let's try it. Okay. Alexis has a knight in rusted armor. So maybe this is some sort of, and they're all going to be creepy, right? Because like Rose probably was like this one. So this could be like an incarnation of something, or uh maybe a suit of armor that was so like saw so many bad things that it absorbed the blood of the wearers and kind of became animated. I don't know. I
That's
mean,
spooky.
yeah, Alexis does like protecting people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I kind of was like, okay, that sort of fits with her. Um Ty has Evan, who looks mangy, um and also a hulking brute of a man draped in strips of desiccated flesh and or seaweed, which is fun.
Yeah,
um
I mean,
Maybe this
yuck.
is like, yeah, like the monster from the Black Lagoon or whatever, like just like a dude who went and killed campers.
It just looks, yeah.
I don't really know what that has to do with Ty.
That's I feel like I have some, yeah, I'm just like, sorry, we can go through all the others first, and then I'm going to go to my
And then
comments.
Tiff has a small child with white hair and pale pink eyes, whose lower face is hidden by a scarf. Tiff has been pretty timid and the one who seems to regret this decision the most, so this sort of tracks with her vibes as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it like it doesn't have a mouth, or it has a mouth with like 18 rows of like jagged teeth, or like if it unwraps the scarf, its head falls off? Like it's something, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember that story.
Yep.
That's a good story.
What a story.
Um,
But yeah, what were you gonna say about this?
I just has a couple thoughts, like, because that, I guess for one, like, that man draped in seaweed and flesh, that's gotta smell so bad.
Oh my god!
Like, so freaking bad. Like, holy crap. Like, they made a
Wow.
fucking entrance just with that guy. Not to mention the knight in rusted armor. Like, I don't know how rusted the joints are, but, like
Like how
that's
loud?
gotta, yeah. Like, I mean, I don't know. That's probably not what it sounds like, but, which it could be really intimidating, but it's also like, also like, I mean, I feel like maybe the joints aren't rusted that much. 'Cause I feel like that would hinder movement too, because I can see them like trying to like, leave all cool after this, and the knight's just slowly like, you know.
Well, maybe the little girl is so pale and her hair is so white that she's so like shiny that it hurts to look at her, so they just assault all of your senses, right? Like,
Yeah, I saw all of your like. The first thing I thought of was pink eye, which, I mean, technically she does have pink eyes, but I mean, obviously not pink eye. That does seem really scary, and I don't even know why. It just seems really really creepy. Yeah, I feel like she's almost scary, like, or almost seems scarier than the flesh seaweed man. I don't even know
Well, that's
why.
interesting. No, I think she seems pretty cute.
I feel like part of it's just like that whole thing, like in Men in Black, where like in the beginning where he shoots that girl in the like the
Oh,
little
yeah.
fake girl in the face, because it's like, oh, she has like a fucking like
Physics textbook or
quantum
whatever,
physics,
yeah.
yeah, and like she's obviously not normal. And so I'm like, for having this little small child like with all these other creepy ass looking people, there's gotta be something super like up with her or him. Did it say it was a she? I'm just might be assuming that.
Oh, interesting. I assumed it was a girl, but I don't think it said.
The child, yeah.
Yeah.
The child, it just, something about that's creepy. Yeah, and then Rose is just like channeling like Granny, which is interesting.
I mean, I like that she still wears old lady clothes. Stuff like this is fun, considering that we learned that she's the material one. And so, I mean, I wonder, like, I guess a speculation or thought or question I have is like, how much did they take out of her when they made Blake? You know, like, did they
her fashion?
Well, that's like right. Like, did they take away parts of Rose and change her, or is she still basically the same?
Kind of
And
just make you
she, yeah.
wonder. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no.
I was just thinking, like, when her family sees her, because obviously they're gonna, I guess, think that, she's the one with them all the time. I wonder if, like, the old lady clothes is something new, or it's always been like, oh my gosh, Rose has always just worn, like, the old, like, really old-fashioned stuff, Because
Yep.
in the beginning, it seemed like, I mean, she was wearing it for convenience, because that's all that she had, but who knows, maybe she was just,
She kind of,
she
I
didn't
feel like,
want to admit.
talked about it, right? Like these are the clothes, but it was like Molly's are right there. Like,
Like, oh no, there's no other clothes I can find. Like, literally, Molly's are right there. No, I can't find anything.
Yeah. But yeah, and so she has Corvidae because, of course, she does, and it's awful,
Yeah.
and I hate it.
And of course, like, he and Mara, like, smile, kind of.
Like each other. It was so
And
funny.
she doesn't notice, which I was like, oh, fucking course. Like, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Corvidae, yeah, he gives off, like, Fae vibes to me sometimes, where it's like the he feels like tricksy and conniving, and yeah, like he likes the drama and he likes to fuck with people just to, like, watch it, which feels very, very I was thinking very briefly about less, because presumably these are others mentioned in the books, and so they're, like, on the somewhat related to possibly being associated with demons-ish side. But I was trying to think of, like, what are some others that you can summon that aren't scary as fuck? And, like, the only ones I can really think of that, like, don't look scary are fairy, which, like, you know.
Are you talking about, like, Fae? Or are you talking about, like, the little, like...
Oh, you could do the little dudes. Yeah, that wouldn't be very intimidating, though. That'd be sort of embarrassing.
No. Are you trying to find intimidating, like, ones? Okay.
Fucked, but, like, just, like, ones that you would have as your...
Any, like, type of, like, godliness type of...
Oh.
Maybe.
But that, yeah.
Or if you brought a fucking angel, that'd be intimidating.
Yeah. Yes, it would. Yeah, I don't know, because I was like, of course they bring these, like, creepy ass things, and then I was like, oh, but it's the other verse. Like, what options do they have?
I mean, she's also a diabolist, so she's probably, like, she's got the creepy stuff at her disposal.
Right.
But, like, there's like Impale the library animus, like,
oh, she's great. Yeah,
she's great. Like, I don't think she's, like, inherently spooky unless you fuck with her books,
right. The Lost are often not
too spooky,
but are fucking weird. But, like, yeah, that's a different vibe. Yeah, I don't know. God, and so they're like, oh, you have friends, lol. Like, they're like, oh, you have a cabal, and she's like, I haven't taught them anything that would qualify them as a cabal, not yet. And I'm like, wait, no. This is so bad. I don't know if Blake ever made Tiff swear that she would never learn anything from the books, but Alexis and Ty definitely did. And again, like, what does anyone remember? What do the spirits remember? What's even, like, real? But also, yeah, no, it's not Blake. It's one of them that's gonna get forsworn, and I hate this.
Well, if the spirits don't remember, they might not have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, but we don't know what anyone remembers.
Yep.
I find it fairly plausible that Alexis and Ty don't remember. Rose wasn't there, so she might not even know. And then, but the spirits remember enough. And, like, Isadora probably, or whoever, I don't know. It's awful.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, oh my god. And then their others don't even sit down. Like, first they don't sit next to them, which is rude. And then they don't sit down, which is so extra. Like, yeah, just chill. Just sit. Like, just chill. Yeah, and then Rose is all like, I wasn't fond of Molly either. And I'm just like, wow, I hate you. But it does lead me, to question, like, so I guess I'm kind of going off the assumption that the most of the first chapter was a fabricated memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know anything about Molly. And what we've seen of Paige is like, yeah, she's kind of a bitch. She's not like fabulous, right? And so I was thinking that it was, Grandma Rose made Rose not like her cousins so that she'd feel more independent-y or something, but maybe it was that she was like, oh, I want Blake to care even like the slightest bit about this family. Like I want him to care that Molly is, dead so that he'll show up. And so Mags, so then Sandra starts talking about the fact that they're all gonna start trying to kill each other.
She's whining about it. Yeah.
Well, I think Johannes is whining about it.
Okay. I thought, I heard whining. It's like, yeah, what a pain. People are just gonna murder everyone.
No, like, so Sandra seems to be like, what if we try not to like actually kill people if we don't have to? And everyone is like, and they're like, that benefits you and your strategy. And it's like, okay, all of you are bad people. Like, so Johannes is like in the back like a fucking cool kid. I mean, like, not necessarily the very back, but still like a fucking cool kid. And then Mags and the witch hunters are up on the front like teacher's pets. I thought it was interesting that, I mean, she's taken on this new role in the town, but yeah, she's more akin to the witch hunters than Mara or Briar Girl or someone who would be like, I'm staying out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. But yeah, so Sandra's like, what if we don't kill small children? And Johannes is like, because he's not really objecting to that. He's more objecting to like the mechanism of how to designate who is in or out of the contest, right?
Yeah.
So the first proposal is like an opt-in. But he's like, a lot of my people can't speak, and what if I invite someone who shows up in a week from now and whatever. And they're like, okay, so an opt-out, right? And like that, kind of works. People can say, I'm not involved, and like, or my child is not involved, or whatever, and that person needs to be there and have an excuse to be like, yeah, I'm totally down for the murder. So that's fun. Because I mean, I guess it'd be funny if Sandra walked up and was like, Johannes is out.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be funny. Okay. So then it's like, who's in, who's doing this, and it's Sandra, Duncan, Johannes, and Rose. And again, like, why is Duncan here? Like,
yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, like, we don't know any of the other Bahame adults. But all we need is like one interlude chapter, and like we can totally get on board with a new character, right? Like, I mean, Duncan was also a policeman, and he's also, he seems pretty good at the practice, and he whatever, but he doesn't have, his ties to Jacob's Bell are like, my family lives there. I don't even remember, he might have grown up there, but it's like not as good of a claim as presumably someone else, but maybe the aunts and uncles are like, fuck this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he has his fucking like foot up on the pew, like he's like cool, and I'm just like, God,
like, you're not cool, bro.
You're not cool. Yeah, so then Johannes and then Rose.
Yeah.
And they're all like, hey, we know that you like don't know shit, but if a Diabolist is the lord of this city, people won't like that. And we'll try to like dethrone you. Like, not just us, right? Like other people. Like Jacob's Bell will be a target. And she's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I know. And I'm like, what?
Like, okay, so you're just being a prick.
Right, and Alexis is like, yeah, we're fine with this. And I'm like, why are you fine with this?
Yeah.
This does not make sense. God. Yeah. And then more bickering, right, where Sandra's like, altercations should take place inside Jacob's Bell. And Johannes is like, and my domain, bleh. And I'm like, is your domain not part of Jacob's Bell? I thought it was. I mean, I know it's like the north side, but what? Also, who the fuck's gonna go into your domain? What are you even talking about?
Like, willingly.
I mean, I guess, right, like, I guess maybe he wants to be able to like shoot fireballs at people from inside his domain or whatever, and maybe that would violate some rules, but also I just assumed that was Jacob's bell. Like I don't know. And she's like, what if we try not to like murder people and instead had like, relay races to determine who wins? And Johannes is like, no, I want to be able to murder people in their sleep. Obviously.
Yeah, I want to murder. Stop being so inconvenient. It's making it so hard.
I guess I could see that something about contests has something to do with connections and would give enchantresses a, leg up or whatever, but it's still just, ugh.
I mean, she's probably like the best person for that town anyway.
She 12,000% is the best person for this job.
Yeah, so.
Ooh. Yeah. And so then they're like, okay, so like people can
even
opt
just
out.
Taking like, yeah, even just taking like how good of a person you are out of it, like she still is like the best.
Right. She's very competent. She seems like politically savvy. I think she wants like stability. Johannes wants to turn the town into another playground so that they will eat, all the vestiges in the town and not like material people elsewhere. And that's fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then fuck Duncan. It's like Duncan is like one of those I feel like there's a couple politicians in Ohio right now who are running for Senate or representative or whatever who like haven't lived in Ohio since like high school, who are all going back being like, yeah, and like there are arguments to be made about whether people can like do a good job even if they haven't really lived in a place for a long time, but it is like a huge like ding in your claim. I mean, there's like Musser who just is like, I'm the lord of everything, and so obviously me never having set foot in Kennet before is not a problem. But that's not Duncan, so
yeah,
whatever. And Rose, so they're like, okay, people can opt out, don't kill any innocents, and we can kill each other, but let's like try to consider not.
Let's just like, yeah.
Right. And Rose is like, fuck that, bye. Like,
yeah.
Which, like, what the fuck? I mean, so I get that now, like, it's undermined the ability, like, like, the others aren't gonna stick to this agreement with each other because that's kind of undermining whatever. But, like, straight up, just make a deal to team up and murder Rose before the lordship contest officially starts. And then once Rose is dead, like, agree to not kill innocents and move from there.
Yeah. Like, I feel, isn't that like a nice compromise? Be like, okay, you guys all you obviously haven't gotten murder out of your system. Let's just to get it out of our system, let's just murder this one person, murder Rose, and then we go back to the rules like we were all going to do before.
I mean, I guess the problem is like going back to Laird's analogy from the first arc, like the Thorburns have nukes, and no one else does. And all of them cornering a Diabolist who seems fucking crazy. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of a logic behind this. I feel like this is part of Grandma Rose's plan somehow. I feel like there's a reason she's doing this, but it's not obviously discernible. And yeah.
It's too bad because no one remembers Blake, so you can't really even have that satisfying, like, well, you should have probably dealt with the nice one.
Right, you should have tried to kill Blake.
Yeah. Don't you maybe regret that? Because now, like, Miss, like, No Conscience apparently is here to, yeah.
Well, she, like, she's just objecting to, like, targeting innocents. Like, Duncan's like, what if we tried not to kill innocents? And she's like, oh, you're just upset because I almost completely destroyed your fiance and everything about her with this bitch right here. Like, the fact that she, like, barely, in my interpretation, barely stopped Corvidae from, like, I don't know how to describe it, right? Like, completely ruining this woman's life, who did nothing other than be friendly to people who helped push her car. And, like, I mean, get engaged to Duncan, but whatever. Like, what? Yeah. But also, so Rose remembers doing that. I guess she remembers the contest with Conquest and stuff and binding him, and just probably remembers herself doing all of it. And so then at the end they're like, okay, you obviously have 3 baby practitioners who know even less than you do, and what if we go after them? And she's like, well, she says try. I mean, the thing that gives me hope is that she says it certainly looks like I am that heartless, which is not yes, I
saying
am
she
that
is.
heartless.
Yeah.
She's just acknowledging that she looks like a complete asshole.
Yeah.
And she walks out, and Johannes is like, haha, murder. And no one else is happy except for the fairy. And I just want to say, like, okay, Johannes, if you're in a room with a decent amount of people and something has happened and you're happy about it, and the only other people who are happy about it are fairy, you should reevaluate.
Yeah. You probably done fucked up.
You are a bad person.
You done fucked up.
And this just leaves me with like, why did you awaken your friends, Blake? And I would argue that this was not necessarily entirely foreseeable. I mean, the whole them not remembering him wasn't entirely foreseeable, because I don't know that they would have necessarily gone with Rose if they were like, well, Blake's dead, so bye. But I hate this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, next, Blake is pretty pissed off because he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're fucking with my friends, and they don't even remember who I am. So he ends up making his way, and he, with some help, he finds the way to the witch's house. He gives her his t-shirt as a gift, which she at first is like, why the hell do you think I need this? And he's like, well, because it's a t-shirt, and you probably don't get a lot of those.
Useful.
And she was like, all right, that's a good point. I like you. She helps him to discuss some escape options, the few that he has, and shows him that in order to save his humanity, he's going to need to confront Carl.
Yeah. Like, middle-aged women like Blake, which makes sense. I thought it was funny that she was like, I don't need a striptease, you're not that attractive. And I was like, you think he's attractive? Like, that's not true. Like, she didn't necessarily want him to, like, whatever, take off all his clothes, but yeah, I was like, that's not true. But yeah, so his more clues about the Vestige thing. His hands are cracked, his leg is super fucked up. I was like, obviously the tentacle demon is really scary and bad. I mean, Blake has gotten into a lot of physical fights in this book and been relatively okay. But I guess part of that was the connections and other things holding him together. God, another thing that's, well, so Rose was feeding off of Blake and Blake was feeding off of Rose, but more like Blake was feeding off of Rose. But Rose was feeding off of Blake because I don't get it. Okay. Anyway. God, 2 arcs from now they're gonna be like, just kidding! Blake was the material one all along. Okay.
All right, you're gonna have to make a bold and specific prediction about that
later
on.
I can't.
You can.
No,
I mean, you don't have to, but it'd be funny.
Okay.
Well, Malia, you should have thought about that before you decided to do this podcast.
I thought, okay. This book was supposed to be scary, and so far it's not scary. But it's so much. And like, it's so much in a really, really good way.
I'm glad it's not like too scary, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's fine so far. I mean, we haven't got the demon from under the house yet, but we'll see.
Do you need to take a break for a second?
No, they walked away. It was probably like Amazon. Okay.
Amazon. Okay. I hope we keep that in. Add some flavor, you know? Let's be like
real life.
They have real lives. You know? They get Amazon deliveries. They get like random people knocking at their door. Woo! All right.
But yeah, so we meet the woman who has a name, I wrote it down, Zoe Artana. And she seems cool and like a real boon to this community. She's knowledgeable enough about how shit works that she's able to have a light bulb and a hot plate and a radio. She has a plant in her window.
That's not
like
fucking bad.
right, like she looks like she appears like a homeless person. She's not like Ms. Lewis, immaculate or whatever, but she's not an eldritch horror. And so like she's living her life and she seems fairly content with her lot in this place, which is really interesting. Um she seems to have intuited a lot about how this space works.
What kind of stuff does she get on her radio?
Baseball, I think it said.
That's right. That's right.
Baseball. Yeah, I was wondering how much of it was current, or if there's radio waves sort of like bouncing around down
You think
there.
it's radio waves that got lost?
Yeah. Maybe. But yeah, so yeah, like you said, Blake gives her his shirt and, says, "Oh, I was homeless once. You can always use an extra bit of clothing." And everyone always asks the same question, which is, how do I get out, right? So they sort of talk about the ones we had already established last chapter or last episode, whatever. And we go off on a little tangent about what a void used to be considered in like the ancient Greek days, where a void was more like chaos, not like nothing. And so that was sort of an interesting thought when thinking about 2 arcs ago and void and darkness demons and all of that. Maybe they've changed and evolved, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so like Blake has 3 things haunting him down here, kind of. He has the deal with his past, which is like represented by Carl. He has visions of the present, represented by Rose ruining everything. And he has like dreams of the future. And Zoe's hypothesis is that you need to like embrace and confront all of these things, and then that'll help you get out. Because she was like, when I was thinking about getting out, like I realized some of the things I'd have to confront and I didn't want to. It wasn't worth it. And that's part of her thinking. So confronting these things is an aspect. And also, she's never met anyone who has 3 of these things down here, which is fun. God, and then she's like, "You're humanity," and he's like, "Well, I guess I'm not so human." And she's like, "The real question is, what are you?" And so he realizes that he's an other. But Blake and me both thought, well, people can become others, and so you just did that when you fell down here.
Yeah.
Even though this was another like
another hint.
There's so many like things on the tip of my tongue that I want to be able to say about this. Like what you said quite a bit at the beginning, like the real Vestige was the friends we made along the way. And the it was me the whole time, or I don't know. There's like, I'm gonna find it. The fun jokes. Yeah, so okay, Blake, if you confront one of these things or whatever, then it'll help you deal with this anchor that's keeping you here, and maybe you'll be able to find some available exit or something. And oh, can I do anything for you? And she's like, well, if you fail and you still live, like come back so I can like figure out more about my hypothesis. And if you succeed, go to my grave in Wisconsin and place a flower on it, which is sweet. I'm wondering if, Wisconsin is convenient because it's not like incredibly far. Like it's not like, oh, I live in Toronto or whatever, but it's not like, oh, I live in, Brazil or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's if space correlates in this place with the material realm. Which is a thought I just had. But yeah, so
yeah,
hopefully he does that, and that'd be sweet.
that'd be sweet.
But right at the very end, she calls him stranger again, and I was kind of thinking, oh, why not tell her your name? Like, why not be like, oh, it's Blake? Connections are probably a decent thing for him at this point, but maybe, I guess, connections to this place is bad. We see pretty soon how he is resentful of giving Carl his name because that gives Carl power over him. But I don't know. I wasn't sure why he doesn't do that here.
Sure. Well, after that, Blake goes through a twisted reimagining, reenactment, I guess, of the traumatic events that haunt his past.
Yay.
Fucking Carl.
Yeah, I mean, so especially given the end of this chapter, I guess one question is like, so was any of this real? I'm very confused about Alexis, but I guess like on a certain level, it doesn't matter if this was all fabricated because it's part of what makes Blake Blake and it shaped him. But also I don't get why Carl and Alexis look like themselves and no one else does. But yeah. This was a really interesting chapter because we know how this ends, or at least we're fairly certain that this ends with Blake being raped by Carl. And so everything that happens, right, I'm kind of expecting like just really horrible stuff, right? And Blake is really ramping up the like everything sucks narrative in his mind, which is fair. But I thought that like the old man was going to sexually assault him. I thought, I don't know, I just thought so many, like it was just very on edge the whole time.
Yeah.
When it's just that like these aren't the best memories. But yeah, so he's working on a farm for no pay in exchange for food and a place to live. And he really likes it. It's fun seeing Blake gain practical skills and living kind of a simple-ish life, but that's disturbed because they can't afford to buy him winter clothes, which, and if he can't keep working for them, like they can't justify feeding him, is kind of what it seems like.
Yeah.
And so this is really, really upsetting to Blake. Obviously, the farmer offers to help, teach him about lighting, like other skills, which is really sweet. Like the first time I read it, especially, I wasn't really sure, and I'm currently not entirely sure how I feel. Like, I guess I'm like choosing to believe that the farmer is telling the truth here, and that they can't afford these clothes for Blake. A question I have is, do you not have any I mean, boots are expensive and he might not have like, several pairs of boots. But maybe the farmer had something, but I don't know. I
mean,
think the second, yeah.
I feel like if you're doing work like farm work or things that are hard labor, your clothes tend to wear out. Like, so he probably doesn't have a lot of extra stuff, I wouldn't think.
Right.
Especially like if they're hiring someone who's homeless, basically, because they're probably not paying him as much as they would pay like
right. Well, it sounds like they're not paying him, right? Like, yeah, they're feeding him and he lives there, but yeah,
so they probably don't have a lot of money.
Right. No. Yeah. I wonder how much of this was just sort of filled in by spirits or whatever, and how much of this was like chosen by Grandma Rose or whoever in particular. Like, why is Blake so good at physical labor, building things and whatnot?
Are you saying you don't think that Rose ever worked on a farm?
No.
What if she was like a really like country girl? And this is like the part they took so that
the only time Rose has ever had anything like resembling Friends is when she bonded with some girls at the end of a camping trip about how it was gross that they hadn't showered. Like,
I mean,
Rose has never been to a farm.
At least this Rose. You never know. This could have
That's
been.
That's true. They could have taken all the fun.
She could have taken all the likable
outdoorsy
stuff.
farm girl stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Could have taken all that stuff and we're like, fuck that. You don't need that stuff to like summon demons.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand anything. Okay.
I'm not saying that's it. I'm just, it's food for thought. She could have been like a real like, she could have had an accent.
She could have been a horse girl.
I mean, she could have been a horse girl. She could have been like helping like feed I don't know. She could have gone to like her like uncle on her dad's side or whoever's house and out in the country and learn how to lasso and learn how to like maybe she went all the way the fuck down to Montana or some shit where they have a lot of horses. I don't know. Just making shit up.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean okay, from a scale from like 0 to 100%, how much of that do you think like could be the case, Malia, from what I just said?
I don't know about the whole like going to a horse farm in Montana. But she could have been more nice and congenial and
so like give me a percentage out of that. Like how much of that do you think
liked the outdoors? 30.
Like 30%. All right.
Yeah.
30% of that might be legit then. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
I like that. I might ask you stuff like that sometimes. I feel like that's kind of funny. Like, give me a percentage. How much of this is bullshit? How much of this
is true?
This might be true. Okay. 30%. Right. Cool.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, so they go into town and the whole time it's just like, is he gonna get kidnapped? I thought the farmer was gonna like abandon him. Like I was convinced that the farmer had like seen how Blake had reacted and was just like, I'm gonna take him into town and leave him there. I mean, I guess Blake could have walked back to the barn or the farm or whatever, but yeah, that's what I thought was happening. So then he goes in this restaurant and he sees some people a little bit older than him and they're like, what's up? And he's like, do you have extra clothes? And there's this awkward silence, which sucks. I think it's interesting here in terms of how like predatory and calculating Carl seems to Blake. The breaks between when Blake is following the script and not are really interesting and kind of telling. But yeah, so Carl and then he's like, that's not cool. You asked us a favor and you didn't even tell us your name. I was like, bitch, what the fuck? Like
fuck off, bruh.
Yeah, like what? Like I just am so deeply upset by that. Yeah, because the proper thing would have been like, oh, hey man, like I might have some stuff, by the way, like what's your name? Like, I'm Carl. Not like, oh my god, you asked us for clothes because you don't have any and you wouldn't even tell me what your name was first? Like, okay. I mean, I guess part of it is like the power giving Carl the name is a type of power or something. But I hated that.
This is really random, but like rereading this because it was talking about like the food, like all these random others that looked like really fucking weird. And like so each had beers and overfat burned French fries in a basket, and they each took turns grabbing the French fries and biting into them. This I was like, what kind of food are they eating? Like, and like are
what do you mean?
Are these others actually eating like pretend French fries? Or like,
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. I hope so. What?
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that it's not like, fingers or whatever. Like, it's like fries.
But it's like they're burnt.
Right. No, they are a little...
Maybe the place that he went to is shitty, so maybe, who knows, maybe that's accurate. Maybe like they burnt all their fries and they're just like these big ass, like chunky burnt fries. And people just eat them because they're having beer, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, yeah. Burnt fries might find their way into the drains or whatever.
It's true.
Yeah.
It could be.
But yeah, so he goes over and to Carl's because he has to keep the memory going. Okay. And he sorry. He goes over to Carl's because he has to keep the memory going because if he doesn't, then he hasn't confronted his past and he can't get out of the trains or whatever. And so he has some beer and he goes to help build the chicken coop. And right before the Carl the Shadow is basically like, if you say, like, this is your last chance to back out. If you say no here, you know, we can stop this, but then you'll never get out. Ha 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 ha. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like what was probably a like, oh, okay, yeah, I can help out moment in the past in his memories is a, oh fuck, I hate this. This is all awful moment in uh Blake's reliving this, which is interesting. Um
Yeah.
yeah, so he stays because people are praising him for being good at things. He stays because he's angry that the farmer would fire him because he couldn't afford to buy him clothes. He stays because he has sex. It it makes a lot of sense to me why Blake stayed. Um,
Yeah.
the part where they're at the store and he sees the farmer is really sad. It was
Yeah.
interesting given that Blake uses this opportunity within the story or whatever to like reduce some stuff when he can. That he doesn't talk to the farmer and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry." But you know, I've got to
Yeah.
keep living with these people because they have winter clothes. Or whatever. Like the I don't know. Um, but yes, we're seeing things here about how they're hungry and oh, we're just buying things we can't get on our own, but also the things they like their vegetable like the farming plots aren't quite ready. And so you're sort of seeing these things sprinkled in here where, it's fun and they're together and they're all having sex and drinking alcohol, but also they're all hungry. Um and in solidarity kind of. Um yeah. Um so then Blake stops being satisfied with this way of life when one of the women gets pregnant. Um
Yeah.
and Blake kind of figures out she was thinking about leaving and then she gets pregnant and um he thinks Carl did this on purpose so that she couldn't leave. um I guess people leaving would undermine what Carl's doing because other people might leave, or something. um the girl who comes in to have sex with Blake that night when he says no, um, frames it like, well, her parents would make the decision for her if she went home, um, about presumably like whether to have an abortion or not, and here she gets to have a say, um, but also she doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So Blake's really, really upset by this and is starting to see that they're being manipulated, um, and that, the sex is a really big part of the manipulation. Um, Eventually later he thinks that Carl is stronger because he's probably feeding himself more than everyone else. Carl has the money, the car, Carl has is older than them, owns the land, all that stuff. Um
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so Carl comes to be like, "Hey Blake, like, here you been not doing shit." And Blake's like, "Well, I used to work my ass off, and so other people can work harder now." Um, and yeah, so they go out and Carl's like, "What's up?" Trying to figure out what's going on and deal with the situation, I guess. And Blake's really upset. Um, and part of this is that new people have come in from Toronto. Presumably, the Carl had taken the pregnant woman to go get checked out with the doctor, and so one of the people who comes back is Alexis,
Mm-hmm.
um, who, I mean, this threw me off kind of because I I think that they say that Alexis is younger than Blake. Um, I figured that she was older, and I kind of thought that she had like gotten her life together around the like time she met Blake and then helped him find an apartment, not like that they were both homeless and stuff at the same time. Um so that was interesting. Um but yeah, and to me it was like kind of a relief and a breath of fresh air. And also she doesn't look like she's not an actor, quote unquote. Like she's not one of the others. She looks like Alexis and I don't get it. But yeah, so Billy finally like confronts him and is yelling about how he uses sex and food and things to manipulate them, and that he's kind of made all the women like they're all kind of in love with him or something, and he intentionally got that girl pregnant so that she would stay, right? And then she overhears and he says straight out, like, yeah, it's the truth, kind of a thing. And apparently he didn't say that in the memory, but he's glad that he did this time.
Yeah.
So then Blake's like, this is a cult and I'm leaving.
Uh-huh.
And Alexis goes with him. Uh, the first time I misread it and I thought that Alexis went in part to be like, hey, you can't just take this car, there's a pregnant girl. But that was some other dude who said that. I'm not sure why Alexis goes with him at this point. But it was cool. And yeah, so they leave, they ditch the car somewhere, they go back to the shelter that they had like kind of known each other from, and Blake waits, knowing that he's waiting for Carl to come assault him. Which is thrilling. In the meantime, he calls the cops on the commune, and there were problems with the permits. And Blake's kind of like, well, maybe, other people who wanted to leave now feel like they can because the cops have like shaken things up enough or whatever. We learn that in the memory, he begged Carl to take him back and that he would apologize. Which I hate. I hate all this.
Yeah.
We also learned that Carl was not an other. Carl was only ever a person, which is interesting. I don't know if that means he's real. I can't figure this out. I guess there's a world wherein this all happened to Rose. And those things were cut out of Rose, but I don't know if that's true. In which case, like, Alexis and Rose would have a really strong connection, but they don't. It seems like. Anyway, so apparently Alexis kind of rescued Blake by clubbing Carl over the head. Which is awesome. I think it's interesting that he was just like, come in, Alexis, like, this time, like, weird, but
well, I don't think they actually, like, well, it kind of seemed like I don't know, it kind of seemed like they paused, like, I don't think they were having that discussion as he was being raped, know? I think it was, like, right before, so he probably was just like, fuck it, come on in, Alexis. She was gonna come in, so.
Right. I guess telling the story or the narrative or something, because presumably if Alexis is sort of standing outside the door ready, she would have, I don't know. But yeah, it was intense.
So at the very end, during all that, Blake has an epiphany and realizes that he was the Vestige all along. Yep.
He's starting to think why was Rose created, and realizes that if Grandma Rose could set up a Vestige to take someone's place, why didn't she set up a heterosexual page? Which is, I think, I don't remember if I explicitly said that in a past thing, but I sort of remember saying something along those lines. And that is kind of, I think, the key to understanding that a little bit of what these limits are. Blake's the one with the time limit, not Rose, because Blake is the fragile one. And, straight Paige wouldn't have been able to last. I'm curious about, was Paige still the first choice, kind of? Because that's what Rose and Blake both seem to think. But having children is apparently super important. And biological children. I mean, the thing is, like, lesbian Paige could have biological children. I'm just like, whatever. Okay.
Do you think it's more of that, or do you think it's more that, like, that she has to get married to a man? Both.
I guess I figured she could just get married to a woman.
Yeah.
And have biological children.
That whole thing with the contract. Well, yeah, but why did she make the contract like that, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the contract doesn't specify you have to have a child. And I mean, she also presumably doesn't test them to see if any of them are infertile or whatever. I guess it felt to me like the marriage thing had to do with children and passing the line down or whatever, but maybe it is important that the Thorburn Diabolist is married to a man. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, so his tattoos are a lot, and he's like, why do I get possessed so easily? And why am I good with glamour and all that? But then he's like, why did I remember everyone? And I don't get how this is part of why he's a vestige. Maybe something to do with the connections, but also it's like Mags was remembering and experiencing things the whole time. I mean, I guess theoretically a connection being broken should also rebound on him, but again, with Mags, she wasn't like, you're not my father's anymore, you're Maggie Holt's father's. So I don't know. But yeah, so the fact that, I mean, that Grandma Rose would make a being with this sort of backstory so that it didn't physically touch people, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess this is the part where we talk about what the fuck is happening. So I guess some thoughts are like, does Rose have a reflection? Is a question that I have.
Okay.
Was Carl real? Is Alexis real? How do they make people think Blake is real? Blake says something about a Bahame or something saying that the connections weren't real connections. So I guess they fabricated those.
Are you asking or are you just...
No, I just had like a thought that I don't
Okay,
like.
yeah, I'm like, that you don't like? Okay.
Well, because the Duchamps deal with connections, right? But so does Corvidae. And I hate that thought that Grandma Rose took Rose's connections and used Corvidae to twist them to make them Blake's.
If if she's like making a vestige, does she need to do that though?
I don't know. I mean, all these people had to forget about Rose and remember Blake, right? So, like, presumably, presumably the night Grandma Rose died was a fabricated memory for Blake. But we see Callan and the walkers in town, and they like know who Blake is and stuff. Which, you know, if it was limited to just his friends having weird fabricated connections and like no one else ever actually coming into contact with him, right? So everyone else was a new connection. Like that seems plausible. But again, yeah, they all had to forget. I mean, because the people in the town wouldn't know about Rose because they'd never met her, because she didn't live there. But yeah, if there's a connection to Alexis, like how did Blake have an apartment in Toronto? Unless it was Rose's apartment in Toronto. Or they went and put a magic mind spell on Joel to make him set up a vacant apartment or something. Yeah, like I guess a big question is, has Rose changed? How much did cutting away her reflection to make Blake change her? This whole time I've been thinking that Blake hadn't changed. That it was Rose, like he no longer had a reflection, but a reflection is a mirror image. Not. This reminds me of, you remember that? Did you watch Jimmy Neutron, right? The show?
Yeah.
There's that episode where Cindy and Jimmy switch bodies. And to switch them back, they dump their brains into that computer and sort all the traits out. And there's like the ability to whistle. Can Cindy whistle? And like there's all these like aspects of themselves. And so like, can Rose no longer whistle, right? Or was it just like a copy, paste, and then alteration? Like, does Ivy exist? Presumably Ivy exists, right? I guess her parents had Ivy really late. Was it because she ran away? Was it just a thing that happened? Was Rose lying when she said that she became the heir the first night? I just don't know.
All good questions.
Okay.
How confident are you that you're going to find the answers to all of these from 0% to 100%?
I don't know, like 70.
Okay. Like, you think you're going to find 70% of the answers, or you're 70% sure you're going to find all the answers?
More the first one.
Okay.
I think that Wildbow writes satisfying stories, but also sometimes he writes things and I think that I just don't quite get it, like the whole Pied Piper thing. So I'm not sure how much of it will have to be revealed by people being like, it was this, versus me just getting it, or him spelling it out. But a lot of these seem like things we should find out.
Okay.
I guess.
Sure. All right. We are at our pale in comparison section. Looks like we did take a look at Blake's backstory, or at least a twisted version of it. And it looks like you wrote down you want to see if we can talk about comparing that to the Carmine Alcazar, which I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I just this is a really interesting way to do a flashback. Um it's a flashback, but Blake has the capacity to make different choices. And also it's like creepy and twisted and gross. But yeah, being able to see the the choices and thoughts Blake had versus the choices and thoughts Blake has is really fun and a neat way to do this, and reminded me of how when the three Kenneteers go into the Carmine Firs Alcazar, they experience the Carmine's memories and experiences, but like kind of as themselves. They like you don't just learn about the Carmine, you learn about Lucy and Verona and Avery and stuff when they're in there. And while sometimes you're sort of left with like, oh, what actually happened, like in general, it like you get almost all of it, and I don't know, it's just like a cool way to do that while also developing other stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
Yeah. Did this section remind you of anything else from Pale or anything?
That in particular. Trying to, I think it's kind of interesting looking at the council meeting and kind of thinking back on some of the Kennett other meetings as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just like how that kind of reminds me a little bit more of like how Rose is more like Edith.
Oh god.
Where she's just like not getting along with people. She's not wanting to play along. Just kind of being a pain in the ass. And everyone's like, gosh dang it, I wish you weren't even here. So
yeah.
it's kind of reminded me of that.
That's fair.
All right, Malia. I'm looking forward to this. So do you have a bold and specific prediction ready?
No.
Well, this is the format. So you're gonna have to suck it up and come up with one.
Well, because I think that, yeah, what I realized between this week and last week is like Blake probably won't get forsworn. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but like it's probably Alexis and or Ty, because of the whole I won't learn anything from the books promise.
So I have a question for you then, if you don't have.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay. Is Blake getting out of the drains?
Yeah.
How? Because we know he's a vestige now. So does that make any of those options more likely? Or does that not make a difference? Like, which way do you think he's gonna choose to get out?
So I don't think he'll become a boogeyman.
Okay.
That doesn't seem like his speed.
Could be a nice boogeyman. Could be like, I'm gonna boogie on down, like boogeyman, you know?
Yes. That also doesn't seem like Blake's speed, but I'd be super down. I
want to see a disco boogeyman someday, but I don't think that quite. I mean, who knows? It probably could make it work. Sorry, go ahead. So no boogeyman for Blake.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not sure about the whole finding a practitioner. Maybe he could find one and be like, look, please take me away from here. I guess I've sort of thought that he was gonna do the find an exit and make a deal.
Sure.
Making desperate deals is a big thing with Blake. I guess that could be a thing with a practitioner, like if he finds practitioner also. But I don't know. I'm sort of leaning toward that route.
Okay. All right. Any clue on, I guess, what he's gonna bargain for, or like what's he gonna give up to get out of here?
Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking like a go out there and do X. But I guess it could be giving up.
So he's either gonna give up something or he's gonna go out and be like, hey, if you let me out of here, I'll go do this task for you, type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Trying to think any other. Do you think he's going to make it to Wisconsin to put a flower on the grave?
No, but I think he's gonna think about it before he ultimately dies.
Okay. Okay. So Blake is okay, this comes to another prediction then.
Oh, God.
Okay, when is, because you just said you think Blake's gonna die, so when is he gonna die in the story?
At the end.
Okay, so he's gonna die at the end. Do you think that he's gonna keep trying to help Rose, or
No.
what do you okay.
I think he's gonna try to help his friends, kind of like survive and get away from Rose. I think he wants to stop the Thorburns from being like this, and I think he wants to destroy or yeah, I'm not sure that this book will necessarily be like a tragedy, but I don't see Blake
You don't see like a
living
sunshiny happy ending? You don't see
Mm,
Disco Boogeyman? You don't see riding into the sunset with like Evan flying next to him and him on his super cool motorcycle?
I do
No?
love that, but not
Do you?
really.
All right. Well, I'm sure I could find a lot of other questions to ask you, but I'm going to not right now because that's going to make it hard for you to fill in your prediction tracker later.
True. And we have so many discussion questions.
We have like 5,000. Yeah. You know what? Every now and then, like it's just so funny because sometimes we'll like be like, oh, this is a great thought-provoking discussion question, and we'll get like no answers, which is fine because sometimes it just doesn't.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Click with people. It's fair. And then sometimes I did think this one gets some answers, but like sometimes you get a discussion question and everyone's just like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to tell you every fucking detail about I've planned this out already for years. I'm going to tell you.
I've been waiting for this discussion question.
Yes, it's great. It's great. But because of that, we are not going to read the entirety of everyone's discussion question answers because it's just a little too much. Unless you want to listen for another hour, which maybe you do, but I don't really want to continue talking for another hour reading stuff out. So, we're going to go over it. I apologize if we've cut yours short, but we're actually going to try to read everyone's answers, which is great. If we miss yours, I apologize.
Sorry.
It was an accident. So our previous discussion question from last week was, if you were getting a tattoo that you knew would change like Blake's, what tattoo would you get? So
I'd
start.
Like to start.
Oh, all right. Malia's going to start.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Richard McRae messaged us on Twitter, and said that he would get tattoos of animals that represent his children, and they would change depending on like how his children were doing. So he recently,
I love that.
It's so cute. No, he recently adopted a little girl who's still a baby, and so she can't really like talk and tell him stuff, right?
No.
And so having her like a tattoo of her like a bear as her, like
okay.
So okay, the tattoo representing her would be a bear, and so maybe it would be like a teddy bear when she needs like love and support, and maybe it would be like a grizzly bear when she needs like protecting or whatever, but like a way for him to understand like his children and where they're at and what they need. And I thought that was so cute.
Oh, that's so cute.
Lovely.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Shoot. I want to do that for if I could get tattoos, I'd do them for my kids. I don't know what I'd do for Lily yet.
I was going to say, yeah, what would they be?
Miko would be a cat for sure. He loves cats more than like me, probably.
He loves cats. He loves every kind of cat.
He loves cats. Like, oh my goodness. Lily, I don't know. I have to see. She definitely is like a ferocious little kid. I feel like that's a good way to describe her. Like she's she's kind of like a bear, and just like really, really cute. But then when she gets mad, she gets really fucking mad. But yeah, I don't know about her yet. But Miko would be a cat.
Yeah, that's fair. That tracks.
That tracks. All right, that's a great answer. Thanks, Richard. So Kippos answered, and she gave a pretty long, pretty cool. It was a pretty cool read. Essentially, just to summarize, she wants a centipede. It's wrapping down her arm with its face at her wrist. The feet would have blood trailing from them down her arm. I think it had it depending on like how herself and how everything was doing. There might be more blood and more might have some wounds. I think she was saying, if I remember correctly. But that's pretty cool.
And this is big Eloise Duchamp energy.
Yeah, super cool.
Jarl Zarl would have a watercolor style tattoo of a sailboat with some background. So the boat represents like their self and the condition of their self. Whether they're like going with the wind or not would be like, you know, are they gaining power? Are they stalling out? And then I really liked the idea that like the clouds could be their karma. So whether there's like storms ahead or like sunny days or whatever, and that was fun. I like that.
Yeah, I really liked the visualization of that. It did make me think of like, a painting or something. And I don't know why. I feel like these like tattoos and stuff kind of remind me of like, you're gonna love this, Malia. The Haunted Mansion at Disneyland or Disney World, because there's this part you go into, like in the beginning, where it looks like there's like a bunch of like kind of normal-ish looking paintings
on
and
the
then
wall.
on the wall, and then is like the elevator goes down, like it shows it was hiding part of the painting, and they get longer and longer, and it kind of shows something like creepy or they don't quite look right, you know. So I just imagine this boat like being really nice sometimes, and then when like doing really crappy, just like super thundery, the boat's like cracked in half and capsizing, and there's sharks all in the water, and yeah. And then when it's nice, it's like, oh, there's a nice sailor that's like sailing, and like maybe someone's like fishing, and yeah, I don't know. It was great.
Yeah.
Next, Koro describes a sleeve of leaves on water floating down their arm. The leaves and their configuration represents their identity and self, while the water and its flow represents the forces underlying and directing that configuration. The quality of the water, maybe with some little indistinct fish or objects in it, could focus on the forces acting on me broadly and the state of my connections.
Yeah, I thought like having fish or whatever in the water was a really cool thought.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So a bird really identifies with Blake, and says that they would probably
Makes
have
sense.
a tattoo that was similar. But instead of a tree, it'd be like a landscape, with birds, and kind of talked about various aspects of it. But my favorite part was, that they say they wouldn't have expected their metaphorical fields to have nearly so much sunflowers in them 10 years ago. But a bird has grown and a bird is marrying her, I assume, Sunflower, which is very sweet. And
that's very sweet.
I love that a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's really nice. I like it. All right, Sengachi. I've got to say, you are way smarter than I will ever be. I'm just saying that because, like, holy crap. You put Sengachi put like you posted on Discord and on Reddit, and put this huge ass like explanation that is way over my head about what did they say, like quantum some kind of quantum net that's supposed to represent all of like the fabric of reality, and we don't actually know what it looks like yet, but they're trying to figure out what that looks like, and it's constantly kind of fraying but also getting repaired and all this stuff. So yeah, so we for our notes we wrote down error quantum correction algorithm, anti-demon properties given what they represent, or at least demon damage mitigation properties. Yeah, sorry, man. Like, it's way over. We had to literally, I shouldn't even admit this, but I was like talking to Malia about this. I was like, how do I like summarize? Like, how do we summarize this? And we were like, I don't even know if I know what quantum means. And so we're like, well, let's at least Google what the hell quantum means. And it basically means like the
Small.
minimum, like basically like the
It means
smallest
small.
it means something really small, like a really small amount of energy. And for physics, like really small amount of energy,
The smallest.
like in proportional to the amount of radiation it represents. So, but like something really fucking small. And then we were thinking, I mean, I don't know. Like if this was a quantum tattoo, it'd probably be too small to see. But then we probably would. I mean, you know, that's ha ha ha. Just kidding. I know it'd be magnified, but it's way. I mean, I probably could have just read your thing and instead of my explanation for it being over my head so much. But
yeah, so if you didn't have to Google the word quantum just now, you should go to Reddit and check out Sangachi's response.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll appreciate it.
Hey, even if you did have to Google the word quantum, you might just appreciate it anyway and just be like, wow, there's people who like study this on purpose, like choose to do this and know what they're talking about, which is great. Because I don't know, maybe in another life I could have been a quantum physicist, but it sure as hell ain't this one. So
truth.
All right. Thank you, Sangachi, by the way.
Yes. Orbital Oracle said they'd get a simple outline of an eye on their inner wrist. So it could like open or close as their self gets better or worse. The iris would change color or turn into a spiral or some other symbol, which is really fun. Oh, if they're like possessed or mind controlled, which sounds useful. Also, it would be able to help them figure out if their connections were messed with. And it could look in directions at like whatever the connections are telling them to pay attention to or to ignore based on,
I thought that was pretty cool.
Which sounds super useful. Like this is very useful.
It's a good idea. Me C1, whatever. Maybe someday I'll learn how to pronounce that. Just like Vestige. Macy one wishes he was admitting he wishes he could get a mini me that could age alongside him and show him how he's doing, but it would probably be a little too vain. So for an actual tattoo, it'd probably actually get a cup or a goblet. Status of the cup, fullness or color of liquid. That would all show how they're doing.
Yeah. This reminds me of Moana, Maui's tattoo.
Wait, the little mini me.
The mini me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like on the one hand, I don't like maybe vain, but on the other hand, like so fun. Especially like hopping all around your body and like yelling at you, like cool.
That's true. Oh, that'd be freaking sweet. I would love to see that. I wonder what Misi one looks like. And I like wonder what
he'd look like in little mini Maui form.
Little mini Maui form. That would be pretty sweet.
That'd be cute. So is this RI Raider or RL Raider?
I think it's RL Raider.
RL Raider. Hello. They already have some pale tattoos, which is pretty cool. They have the girl by candlelight, and they're planning on getting the others. And they have an idea about like if they have a tattoo of an other that's providing them power, and that relationship change and the other stops giving them power, then like that tattoo would fade, which like kind of cool.
Yeah. Next, Ace of Sword. They had, I think, 3 paragraphs that were talking about different ideas for barometer type tattoos that were really, really cool. But I had to cut that all out, so I'm sorry. So I decided to talk about, or the last paragraph was said an actual potential tattoo in the future that could work as a potential barometer. They wanted to get an awakening themed tattoo with pillars that were represented, but they weren't quite sure on what they'd put on all the pillars yet. But I thought that was cool.
That's really cool. Wentinator says they'd get bone tattoos overlaying real bones.
Yeah.
So if they broke their arm, there'd be a fracture that appeared. Oh no, I'm lying.
Yeah, read the thing, Malia. Jeez.
Sorry, Jenny takes notes on the Reddit stuff, and I take notes on the Discord stuff, so
yeah,
it's fine. So
it's fine.
Fractures would appear on the bones when karma takes a hit. if their self has been drained, the bones turn more yellow and porous. And if there's corruption or possession, the bones turn red, or you get like tendrils wrapping around them, which feels very Otherverse approved.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've seen bone tattoos before.
Really? Huh.
You should Google it. It actually is pretty cool. Yeah, but next, expensive ad 8633, which is kind of a hilarious name to me. Was talking about a potential like coral or fungal or hive tattoo. The growth and structure would show self status, and the strength of the swarm would determine spirit. A swarm attacking something would indicate possession, or if it, was the possession was working really, really well, potentially a bleaching effect. And they're also saying like different variety of like the creatures that were inhabiting the swarm could show the realm that they were currently in. I thought that was pretty cool.
It is cool. I'm wondering, I'm not caught up, but I'm wondering if this person is currently caught up with the Adventure Zone and or listening to Ether Sea, because that reminds me a lot of that.
I'm not, so don't.
Yeah, it reminds me of a character in Ether Sea, which is pretty awesome.
Hashtag spoilers.
Okay.
No, it's kind of, it's not a surprise that Ether Sea is going to have like a fucking coral or something
stuff.
in it.
Yeah. Captain Rhino says that they would get a Vitruvian Man tattoo, that like Leonardo da Vinci sketch with the arms and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, sounds useful.
I mean, that does seem like a pretty good barometer for how you're doing. So cool. Let's see. Do you have a new idea for a discussion question? Or are we just going to say, how about this? How many of you have drank your own urine? We mentioned it before. I bet none of you expected us to actually ask. It's anonymous. Like, we don't know you. No judgment. Or if you know someone who's drank their own urine, why?
Why?
I want to know why. Like,
have you drank?
I'm sure there's better discussion questions we could come out of this, but I feel like
inquiring minds
I feel like I want to know why. Have you seen any benefits from it? I feel like I might be kind of biased in my opinion of that, but I want to know. Tell me.
Yeah.
Or if or any other weird crap like that. That's really the weirdest one I can think of off the top of my head. I don't know.
It also feels like, we did talk about it, so
we did talk about it.
It's true.
I'm not expecting any answers. I'm kind of hoping for no answers, to be totally honest. But at the same time, no. Like, if you were a listener and you want to tell me your experience, I would love to hear it.
Yep.
Because I want to hear the reasoning, and I want to hear if it's done anything for you.
The only thing I can, like, when I think about people drinking their urine, I think about like people in like a desolate, like in the the desert or something, like people who are like in a desperate doing it to survive, right?
Yeah. Well, that's one thing for sure. Like,
right.
Yeah, but I guess I'm glad that you were thinking of that. I was thinking of like
for fun.
This pretty much. Yeah, I was I'm not considering doing that for fun. I'm just thinking, I don't know. There's this show I saw a long time ago, and I don't remember what it's called, but like it would talk about, I think it was Strange Addictions. I don't know if you've heard of that show, but it would like talk about people who are like addicted to very odd things. And I think like there was someone who like was addicted to eating like the stuffing of like her couch. Like she just kept eating it. Someone who is like addicted to eating borax. And then there was someone who was addicted to drinking their own urine. And they all like were taken to like a doctor and checked out, and were basically like, hey, your labs are all screwed up. This is obviously having an effect on your body. You should probably stop it. And most of the time they didn't, because it was just so like ingrained in them and so addictive. They couldn't
stop. It sounds like that thing, pica.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Just like more specific.
Mm-hmm. Pica or pica. I don't remember how you pronounce that either, but
yeah.
Let's see. Help me out, Google.
Because of Brie, so.
I learned about it in nursing school first off, but apparently I still don't know how to pronounce anything, so. Pica. Okay, Pica. That is right.
Okay.
Thank you, Google. I appreciate you. I'm just going to try to look that up so people aren't like, wow. I mean, you'd think if you have a podcast, you'd know how to speak.
I mean, you do.
And I do. So you're welcome. That's right.
What? Okay.
I don't know. My kids are making noises, so I'm getting distracted. But you're welcome for the great discussion question. I hope it's very thought-provoking for you. Have you drunk your own urine and why? All right, guys. On that note, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a rating and review. To support our podcast, go to patreon.com/joofmedia. And if you'd like to support Wildbow as he continues to write fantastic stories, go to patreon.com/Wildbow.
You can follow the pod on Twitter at Pale Comparison, or send us an email at paleincomparisonpod@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for our Reddit thread in r/parahumans, where you can answer our discussion question and share your thoughts on this episode. In addition, if you would like to see all of my predictions laid out, check out our episode description for a link to a prediction tracker. Next episode, we will be covering chapters 9.5 and 9.6.
Fun fact, Dan Frost, which is not a very German name, but is a German scientist from the Bavarian Geo Institute. Or I was trying to pronounce this and I was trying to read this in German, and Malia was just like to say Bavarian.
Geo Institute? Something
Thank
like
you,
that?
Malia. Thank you.
I don't know how the
that.
G would be.
I have no fucking clue. But basically, this guy, Dan Frost, has created diamonds out of peanut butter at this institute. I guess he's trying to mimic the conditions of the Earth's lower mantle, which you're like, what does it have to do with peanut butter? So I guess it involves crushing rocks to like some really, really, really high pressures. So he's like basically used this to make diamonds. And he's also apparently made diamonds from carbon dioxide, which is really interesting.
What?
Which is kind of wild. Yeah.
I mean, it probably produces too much energy to like save us from global warming, but
yeah, like I'm not gonna lie, this article, because this isn't, I'm not reading a study, it's a article here on BBC. Starts out with being like, every so often Dan Frost hears a dull thud and his office floor vibrates. It can only mean one thing: one of his experiments has exploded again. They're just like, everything's protected, it's not dangerous, but it's kind of funny.
That's incredible.
Yeah. All right.
Also, I guess this means that peanut butter is Rose's best friend.
Is whose best friend?
No, Rose, because she's a material girl.
Oh my gosh. So stupid.
Okay.
Peanut butter. All right. Bye, guys. Have a good week.
Peanuts are a girl's best friend. Wah, wah.